get into the stardust. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. I'm coming home.
tonight on Countdown to Green. We recap all the action from the Windy City. We take a look ahead to tonight's race from the Brickyard. We take a look at how you're racing at home. All that and more tonight on Countdown to Green.
Hello and welcome to the eNASCAR Countdown to Green show. This is the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, and this is Countdown to Green. I'm your host, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. Joining me, as always, we have Alan Cavana and Blake McCandless. And you know what, you guys? Whenever I hear that music, when we're waiting for the broadcast to start, I just get so excited.
I get excited. I start drumming. I'm even more excited because the first thing that we saw was the Brickyard, Camille. The Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Pagoda, the Yard of Bricks. We're seeing it with the next-gen car for the first time. Look, I come from the weekends, right? I'm a Sunday fan. I'm excited to see these cars, Blake, on this track. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's 2020 since this series came to this racetrack, but I think there's a lot of anticipation. Again, 2 races before the playoffs at a track that lends itself to a lot of strategy options. I think we're going to see some drivers get really aggressive with that. And, of course, anybody wants to win at the Brickyard, whether you're trying to make the playoffs or whether you're kind of on the outside of the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, we're all excited to see the new gen cars on the Brickyard. But before we do that, we got a lot to go down in this show. And first, we're going to start off with, what happened in Chicago. That was pretty exciting for you, Alan.
It was. I got to be there with 4 of our best and just spend the day because they raced from there. But there was so much going on before that. We were up there in the Ferris wheel asking them questions, a lot of content out there, and just the NASCAR presence. Playing a little mini golf. I think we'll see some more highlights. But most of all, just the presence there. They had the 4 simulators that anybody walking by could jump up there and try out and see what was going on and really take this in for the first time. And Blake, you can see there, our 4 drivers, I'm trying to interview them as they're racing. They are doing this in the elements. Tucker Minter here you're going to see his sunglasses, Blake. You ever raced in sunglasses?
I haven't, as a matter of fact, especially with the sun glare that they had. They definitely had some unique circumstances there that they weren't typically used to in sim racing, but nevertheless, such a great opportunity for them to show people what this is all about, to see all the sights of Chicago, and to build up anticipation for an event that was a week long in the making. Again, they hadn't even built the track at this point, so great to see everybody go out and have a good time.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Did we actually see them do a little shifting gears into mini putting as well, Alan? Did you check this out?
There was competition everywhere. Look at this. Nick Ottinger gets it done. I mean, look at the club swing and everything. I mean, the bang. Watch this. He doesn't hit the ball, which is, right in his way. And then he just holds the thing. I mean, what a player here.
I watched the rest of this video, and the fact that he missed that ball and drained it, that's going to be a lifetime golf accomplishment for him. Because I watched the rest of that video, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good sometimes.
At least they captured it.
Well, you know what? We take the highlights here, and we got the highlight of Nick's golfing right there for you. So you don't get to see bad takes there. But what we are going to see, we're going to see all the highlights as we go through Chicago and how the race went, Alan.
Yeah, it started off, remember they had some of these heat races, Blake, and to start them off like this, or sprint races, it gave us an idea of who would be the players and who would have some trouble, because this would ultimately set the lineup for the main event, which was so important as we ultimately learned about track position and the kind of things that they would have to deal with in this race. Such tight corners, such a tight track, and just a little incident there, and you get spun out and keep going. There were no cautions. Blake, it was a heck of a race.
It was, and again, the sprint race format a little bit different in the fact that we handed out points based off of their qualifying position. So a couple of those guys that had a really good qualifying time, that lost a couple of positions through the invert, were able to take a couple of points home with them and then try to make up this ground through this sprint race. But it was interesting to see, not only in the sprint race, but throughout all the features that we had, was the look of some new names that were up towards the front of the field. But it was still Bobby Zalenski here at the end of the first sprint race that ended up going to victory lane after making a pass on Parker White towards the beginning of the sprint race. And then we look forward to the feature, Alan. Again, these top two, Parker White, Bobby Zalenski, so close. We knew that this was a critical moment in this race.
This was so good. right at the beginning. Those first few corners, we didn't know how long the race would last, but look at this, how close this was, because it was so important, Blake, to get out front, and Parker does all he can. You think you have him right here. You think couldn't clear him, and then further back in the field, there was a little trouble. You see just how chaotic. It was barely big enough for 2 cars, and they're trying to put 3 cars in that corner right there. But out front, it was a different story, because ultimately Parker White just couldn't keep Bobby Z behind him.
And it was tight all the way throughout the field, and we saw it a number of times, even with some of the incidents that we had. This was later in the race. Graham Bolin trying to make up a spot on Michael Cozy Jr. Daniel Falkingham ends up going on by, but we saw this time and time again, and we saw it in the Cup race on Sunday as well, that these guys are racing just mere inches off of each other. It's so narrow on these streets, but these next-gen cars allow these drivers to have a little bit of lean, be able to make some contact, and still be able to race hard. It was a great show for sure.
It was, and Tucker, I got to jump on the sim, and Tucker, right, this section right here was so bumpy. That's why it led to a lot of issues as they make this final turn here. This was right before they got to the start-finish line for the end of some of these races, but you can see just how tight the racing was. You miss a corner, you make one mistake, and there was a lot of action back there in the field, just trying to make it and survive until the end. And then we had Bobby Z getting it done, and that just made me think, look, we've had 2 road course races this year, 2 checkered flags for Bobby Z. He did his part in terms of getting the job done where we know he is the road course king in this series. But to me, Blake, I wonder, what is now the championship path for Bobby Zalinski? Now that there are no more road courses left, we know he can get to the championship 4. He's done it so many years. Still looking for that first title. Without a road course, though, what exactly is his championship path? I don't know. I hope he can prove us wrong and show us he's got something on the ovals. He's doing well in the points, but without the road courses left, I wonder how he can get to that championship race and ultimately the championship 4 and get that trophy for the first time.
Well, and if history tells us anything, it's that it almost doesn't matter what that path looks like. He's been able to get to the championship 4, just looking to finally close the deal in 2024. But I'm looking at just this overall, I guess you could call it a new era of road course racing in this series. Of course, it was Bobby Zalinski. It was Parker White, again, a newcomer somewhat to these road courses who may get himself a win soon. But looking throughout the top 10, so many names that when we look at road courses, we may not have anticipated seeing up there. The likes of Michael Cozy Jr., Dylan Duval, Vicente Salas, Steven Wilson even. And again, they're very accomplished road racers, but the fact that they are consistently starting to run up front towards the front of this field, I think it just goes to show the nature of the driver that's starting to qualify for this series. The drivers are more well-rounded, more experienced, more skilled than they've ever been at any point in this series history, and I think that creates a lot of parity that we even start to see at these road courses. And what about, you talk about parity, look at the playoff standings right now. Yes, we have Wilson with 3 wins. Zalinski gets his 2nd. He has 2 road course victories this year, but only a couple more drivers have a win that are in the postseason right now. Again, Keegan Leahy, Malik Ray, you can see it right there at the bottom of your screen, have a win, but are currently outside the top 20 in points. Malik Ray just 13 points back. So in these next 2 races, he needs some solid finishes if he wants his win to qualify him for the playoffs. Also a note of Parker White nearly or has a shot to compete for the regular season championship that would lock him into the postseason as well. As we take a look at segment 3 points, which again kind of mirrors what we've been seeing throughout this whole season. Steven Wilson looking for some more playoff points to take into the postseason. Parker White looking to challenge as well. And how about Graham Bolin, Alan? Not somebody we've necessarily seen towards the front overall, but as of late has been very, very strong, but needs a little bit more to make the playoffs.
That's why those segment points are so important. They reward the recent performance. Let's look at the team standings. Some money, trophy pride on the line. William Byron Esports on top by 33 points over Williams Esports. Sitting there in 3rd, Steven Wilson and M80. And then last week's winner in Chicago, Joe Gibbs Racing with Bobby Z. You can see there, they're minus 59. They moved up a spot. They're 59 points out. But if you look, the top 5 are separated by 69 points. You can get about 72 point swing between the 2 drivers on your team in one race. So the top 5, top 4, a really tight race still. And then you go down a little bit. It's a very tight race for all those team standings. Don't forget that trophy on the line.
Those teams want those trophies. And you know what I want? I want to look back at some of the best times that we've had in a little segment that we call The Vault, where we look at the series past. Our iRacing staff writer, Justin Malillo, actually put this together looking back at 2018, where it brought us the legend that we know as the four-time.
Ray Alfalla is famously known as four-time, but how did he earn that title? Well, in 2018, he was poised to get back on top and take back the crown from Flyin' Ryan Luza, the hotshot rookie who won the championship on debut in 2017. Once again, Luza was fast out of the gate, taking wins at Fontana and Las Vegas early in the going. Alfalla countered with his third career win at Richmond. By the end of the regular season, Luza had 3 wins to Alfalla's 1. Both would return to the Championship 4 for the second year in a row, joining Matt Busa and Michael Conti at Homestead. Luza dominated the day early, with Alfalla trailing in his shadow. Coming to 35 laps to go, Alfalla looked inside on Luza, but couldn't get the pass done. He decided to pit in for the undercut instead, forcing Luza to pit 2 laps later. Alfalla's dig through the access road and 2 laps fresher tires put Ray ahead of Ryan as the pit cycled through. It was Alfalla and Luza, nose to tail, with the title on the line. On the final lap, Luza just couldn't get there as he ran out of gas exiting the final corner. Ray Alfalla was crowned 4-time, and to this day is the only multi-time champion in the 15 seasons of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series.
Again, really great to look back on this series and so many of the drivers, many of which have had pretty illustrious careers at this racetrack. Again, Ray Alfalla has 2 wins at Indianapolis, the track we're coming to tonight. And if you look at just the list of names that we have that have won at this race, Ray Alfalla, Brad Davies that have both gone to victory lane multiple times. Indy's not a track, Alan, where you don't see the best of the best going to victory lane.
Yeah, and I think about that on the Cup side of things. Legends win at Indy, and same thing here on this side. The best of the best tend to win this race.
And there's a lot of legends at home. I'm trying to make a segue here, guys, as you could tell, because we are getting to where we get to check in with you all at home and your rigs that you have. This is Logitech Show Us Your Rigs, where you can submit your rigs on social media using the hashtag eNASCAR and tagging us. This first one, Alan, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I love the blue lighting in this. Enough space. I mean, there's space back there. You could have someone watching the triple monitors. Looks like a big Jimmy Johnson fan. Maybe some good vibes tonight for the Brickyard. Jimmy won a lot there. I love it.
All right, Blake, we got to get your insight on this desk setup.
All right, I like the IKEA desk setup that we're going with here. Single monitor, you got everything you need to the left, a little streaming setup that is solid. Nice Logitech G wheel, makes it pretty simple. And yeah, I like this one. This is a pretty effective setup. No tray for the keyboard though, but we'll see if that changes.
I'm afraid the keyboard's probably just a little bit too much on the edge, but Alan, this one's pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, our boy Evan is jealous with all those die casts that he's got on the wall here. I love this from Frito. Maybe an IMSA fan. You can see a Mid-Ohio towel there, WeatherTech number board on the back of his rig. Karting trophies, maybe a real life racer here getting some. And of course, a seat. Looks like right out of a car. A car's missing a seat somewhere.
Oh no, where's that car? Hopefully it's on the driver's seat. And we have this one here. And you know what? They're staying hydrated right there. You can see that cup on the side there.
That's pretty helpful. Henry, again, I really like the triple monitor setup here. This is really sleek, really nice. Good hardwood floors there, too. You know, sometimes it's nice to have the aesthetics all the way around the rig. So this is a really solid one, Henry. Nice job there.
All right.
I like how we're bringing in the whole environment here with the hardwood. No hardwood here, though, Alan.
No, but Ron, our friend Ron Morass, has some upgrades I like there. What we got going, proper wrapping. If you see the XLR cable there. Also that little fan down there. Got to keep everything cool, whether it's equipment or yourself. You want to make sure you're okay. Ron, great setup there, especially in this heat. It's like 100 degrees here.
That's true. This is our last one, Blake. What are your thoughts?
Rubik's Cube on X. You got the ultra-wide monitor going on here. That's always a really solid combination to go with as well. You got a Dave Cam stream in the background that he's kind of taking in. So definitely somebody that can get the job done. Long pedals as well, too. That's something that's a little bit different you don't often see. So, but again, nice solid job here.
Well, be sure to bring in your rigs right here on Countdown to Green because we do like to check in on them. You could send us your rigs through social media using the hashtag eNASCAR and iRacing and tagging us both. So we want to see it. All right, let's get into it because this night is all about the Brickyard. So we figured here on Countdown to Green, there's no better person to give us some insight about the Brickyard than 2014 NASCAR Cup Series champ, 3-time winner at the Brickyard, Mr. Kevin Harvick. Alan, you always get to talk to the coolest people.
Yeah, what a pleasure to get to talk to Kevin Harvick earlier. Former Brickyard winner, the champion, and of course an owner here in the series. And that's what we asked him about. We asked him what got him into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series as an owner. Here's what he told us.
For us, it's really just trying to cover as many racing platforms as possible. From a KHI standpoint, and once I retired and we started to adjust the business plan and what that model looked like, iRacing is a huge part of the racing landscape and everything that comes with that. So I have firsthand view of that on a daily basis with Keelan, on his rig and the things that he does downstairs here in the house. So he's a fan. Obviously, we've been around Matt for a long time, and so I kind of leaned on Mike Conti a little bit just with everything that he's done with iRacing in the past, just to get started. And this has been a lot of a learning year for us from a KHI standpoint as to taking it all in and Treetop's coming on board to sponsor the cars and everything that comes with that. So I feel like next year we'll have a much better grasp of exactly what that, a little more broader scope of what we want, to do with the platform. But, the important thing this year was to get everything established and get started. But I believe that the iRacing platform is a huge part of what all the young racers do. It's a great place for people to learn and be a part of our sport in a way that some people can't afford to race an actual car or have access to an actual car, and to be able to have that platform where so many of the people that are racing cars and around the sport outside of iRacing is it's just very unique. So we felt like it was important to try to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
You heard Kevin refer to Matt. That's Matt Busa, one of his drivers, as well as Jimmy Mullis in this first year of ownership for KHI, Kevin Harvick Incorporated. And we asked Kevin what it's like to have those two drivers, those veterans, as his drivers.
The one thing that Jimmy and Matt asked in the beginning was they wanted to do their own thing because it's a little bit different than what we would do on the actual racetrack outside of the car. But outside of the rig is really, we try to just have a consistent platform to show when they're racing who they are. We will include them in our foundation events, and they've both been to the shop and just baby steps. That's really what it's been with us with those guys. I've been pretty hands off with the competition side. Obviously, Jimmy came close to winning, and we've had some good weeks, but we need to work on that side of it from a consistency standpoint. But I think that this year has really been about just letting those guys do what they do, and for us to figure out the platform and not step on any toes and establish ourselves as somebody who's involved and wants to be a part of it.
It's safe to say Kevin Harvick is a hands-on owner. He joined us, if you remember, last year at the NASCAR Hall of Fame for the championship race. A lot of pressure at that race. So we asked the champ what it's like, that experience of having to race live at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, what he thinks that's like for the competitors.
Yeah, and it's not just like it's not a quiet atmosphere. Everybody's kind of roaming around and doing their own thing, and you guys are calling the broadcast from the booth there during the event. So it's a very unique situation. I'm glad that everybody has to do that and put them outside of their element, but part of our development process that we talk about with our young kids is how can we make them comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that really shines through with the championship event, because that's just uncomfortable for those guys, and how can they block that out and do the things that they need to do in the seat to still perform at the level that they need to. So there's no details that are too high, and I think that they all managed it way better than I would have.
And for many, the first experience for iRacing was during the pandemic and seeing it on television. That's where Kevin Harvick had to do it. He had to race on Fox during that time. We asked him about that experience, and especially along with his son, Keelan.
Well, it was very unique. We had 1 million people watch on Fox, right? And so people were starving for things to do, and iRacing was the absolute perfect platform to kind of reintroduce everybody racing together. It's not something that I'm very good at. I didn't obviously have a background at it, but it's, like I said earlier, it's a part of what these kids do as a part of their weekly preparation and things that go along with that. So it was great to be able to kind of be embedded in that for a short period of time before we actually went back to work. But that really was kind of the first step of the process that said, hey, we're going back racing, and we're going to start here, and we're going to figure everything out once we get back on track, in the outside world. iRacing really kicked that off and kind of got everybody talking and excited about racing. And so it was just this really unique time. We were on it so much that Keelan actually asked to go take a break because we were prepping for races, and he wanted to take a break and go to the go-kart track. And that's really what started his driving career, was the pandemic, and iRacing that's really all we had to do during the week. So it was a very unique time, and really was the start of establishing that we were going back racing, and NASCAR was working on it. And here was the first step of the process to get everybody back together.
And we're going to take a look at what his driver, Matt Bussa, did right there in practice. And guys, Kevin Harvick may be retired as a driver, but he is entrenched in the racing world, the racing business. To see him involved in iRacing, in sim racing, just shows how valuable he believes this platform is to the future of all racers. It's so cool to have him involved.
Yeah, it is. Well, and you think about just being well-rounded in everything that KHI has going on. Having Matt Bussa and Jimmy Mullis compete week in and week out, and like he said, there's been a couple moments where they've been close to going to victory lane this season, but having that be a part of everything that KHI has going on, both in the sim and the real world, is exciting, obviously, to have him be a part of it and get introduced to the iRacing side of it this year.
And it's very fitting to hear from him, of course, being a champ at the Brickyard, and we're here at the Brickyard. And with that, I think when we think about the drivers hitting the track, we're thinking of them in that cockpit, but they also have to think of what's happening behind the scenes on the track. What can they expect? Blake,
it looks simple, but it is so difficult here. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Speedway, Indiana, and again, somebody that got to visit this racetrack for the first time a year or two ago, it'll take your breath away. What an incredible facility that it is. It's the first time we've been back since 2020. Keegan Leahy, who again probably needs a win and a lot more to happen to have a shot at making the postseason. But, it's a simple layout, but we'll let Zach Novak get into the details to tell you how it's a very complicated racetrack to get around as well.
What's up, everybody? Zach Novak here, driving the number 5 Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Chevrolet for Oxygen Esports. We're at Indianapolis this week. This place holds a very special place in my heart, so let me show you around. As you can see right here, I'm just kind of trying to find a spot in line, which seems like this outside line is rolling a little bit. Try and get myself cleared down so I can just kind of manage my tires and not go backwards on the long run. This track doesn't really wear tires out too much, but with that said, if you're not careful and, take care of them, then you're going to go backwards on the long run. So, finally, we're able to get down a little bit, it looks like. Maybe not. Try and get down here. Bump draft is also going to be super important, using the cars around you to kind of make your own speed, versus trying to always pass and, take advantage of people slowing down off the corner or whatever. You want to kind of work together to your advantage as best as possible and try and make as much time, working together, like I said. So that's a big thing. It's not quite super speedway racing, obviously, but it does have a couple of those elements that tie into this. Also, all of these corners are almost completely different. They all obviously have their similarities, but with that said, they're all kind of shaped slightly differently and have slightly different angles that you shoot for. That's a few laps around Indianapolis. Hope you guys enjoy the race.
And we will, because this track is a piece of history, right? And it's including here in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. This is the 12th race tonight. It's the first race, though, at the facility since 2020. It feels so good to be back, especially seeing some of that older video and all the fans packing in there. Only one Indianapolis race winner started outside the top 16. Qualifying so important. The average starting position of the race winner, 7th place. So you want to start up front if you want to have hope to win. 5 of the 11 race winners led the most laps during the race, and 4 of the 5 race winners, of those race winners, won from the pole, actually. So qualifying even more important, especially leading all those laps. I love this kind of historic footage we have from way back. 2 drivers have earned their first win at Indianapolis. 2016, Dylan Duval, and 2017, Zach Novak. He explained why this track was so important to him. That is why his first win came on the Brickyard. And finally, half of all the race winners have made the playoffs in the same year, but only one winner here at Indy went on to win the championship way back in 2012. The GOAT, if not the GOAT, 2012. It was Ray Alfalla. So a lot of history here at the Brickyard, both virtual and real life. We're going to make some more tonight, guys.
Yeah, we are going to make some more and maybe make a little history for our picks as well. What we like to do here on Countdown to Green
Ooh, look at that.
is choose the drivers that we think are going to win each race. And as you can see, yes, Alan, you're leading in picks, but I am coming for you. I am close behind you. Blake, we'll talk afterwards, but you're being super humble about your picks. With that, why don't we get to our picks for tonight? Blake, you're in last. Why don't you go first?
Well, speaking of history, you mentioned the fact that we have 2 first-time winners that got it done at Indianapolis. I'm going to go with the third tonight. Unironically, I didn't tell him that I was picking him, and he said, you know what, I'm going to win tonight. I'm going to go with Michael Cozy Jr. He's been really turning it around these last couple weeks. I think he finally gets it done tonight.
Not bad. Sorry, Mr. Cozy, but I'm on a little bit of a win streak here, so I'm going to go a little bit protect the lead, but also go with the man. This defending champ, all the wins, Steven Wilson. He's a Midwest guy on a Midwest track. He's going to win tonight. Camille?
Well, I think that's the tricky part about our picks is trying to see when one will fall, but hopefully Wilson does not fall tonight because I also chose Mr. Steven Wilson.
Boom. Boom.
But we'll have to see how it all goes down tonight. But you know what? This is about the time before we head into race. We usually find out who's pole sitter. Blake, do you know?
That's a good question, Camille. Who is the pole sitter tonight?
All right. Well, we're going to have to see. Drum roll, please. Blake?
It is Colin Keister.
Oh.
Ooh.
Name we
Colin
didn't
Keister.
expect. All right, I like that.
I know. We may be throwing it for a loop here and maybe a history for Countdown to Green where none of our picks come into the top. Hopefully not. Anyways, for now, that is it here on Countdown to Green. Of course, you want to stick around after this break because we got the race, the Brickyard Indianapolis, happening right after this. Blake's going to join the crew, Joe Peak and Ryan Vargas, to give you the lowdown as the race commences. Enjoy.
This is the make or break moment.
Oh my goodness!
Not just for the day, but for the years to come.
Green has to win!
This is where a race isn't just about the race. It's about the doors it can open.
That kid is amazing.
The number of fans wearing your number. This is the chance to carve your name into the history books. This is the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
Every time you sit behind the wheel, you buckle up for the unexpected. You get ready to take on the competition and brace yourself for the chaos, the speed, the weather, the unknown. But above all, when strapping in, you put trust in yourself, your intuition. Make it your guide to win, your drive to win.
He's a winner in this.
And nothing is going to stop you from winning.
I believe in something that I can't explain. The wind is calling out my name. Let it rain on me. You know I put in the hours, and I'm not gonna wait in line. I'm gonna take what's mine for the world to see. You gotta take the lead. You gotta feel the fire. That's all I see, and I still believe. You gotta take the lead. Take the lead, take the lead, take the lead.
Well, we didn't have to go far from sweet home Chicago. It's back home this time for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Looking forward to them returning to the Oval. I'm Joe Peak with Blake McCandless and Ryan Vargas here to bring you the action at the Brickyard here in Speedway, Indiana. Guys, I am absolutely looking forward to this one. This is a place special to my heart, as well as just about any racer in North America. Blake, I think this one's going to mean something to these guys.
It's going to mean a lot. Again, any driver, they want to win at this racetrack, even if it's virtual. But again, there's so much on the line. This is a track that lends itself to strategy, and we're going to have to see a lot of drivers, Ryan, throw some Hail Marys here. Again, 2 races before the postseason. This is a track and a race that all these drivers have had circled on the calendar pretty much all year long, but it couldn't come almost at a more crucial time in the season.
Yeah, the word of the weekend last weekend for the Cup Series in Pocono was strategy, and you mentioned it right there. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of guys try and do some stretching that fuel. But also, there's some guys in this field that are having a lot of speed. Dylan Duvall, a former winner here on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he was really fast in both practice and qualifying. So there's guys like him who are really itching to get themselves in the playoffs.
There's certainly drivers with some impetus to try and get up to the front and take victory today, whether that be a first win, whether that be locking themselves into the playoffs later on. But everybody wants to come out on top. So looks like we're rolling off now for our pace laps before we get going. And we will check out our grid for today with Colin Keister, as we mentioned, taking the pole position for Tony Kanaan Racing. Cody Bius, they're going to be starting to his outside in the number 27, takes us to the second row. Vicente Salas starting on the inside of that second row. And of course, Dylan Duval for Nitro Circus, of course, owned by Travis Pastrana, starting there in the number 41. Then you've got row 3 in fifth. It's Caden Honeycutt for Junior Motorsports, of course, owned by Dale Earnhardt. And then Casey Kerwin in 6 for Spire Motorsports out there on the outside of row 3. We come down to row number 4. Malik Ray, also for Spire there on the inside in the number 7. Then M80 for Stephen Wilson, current reigning champion, starting there in the number 10. Takes us to row 5 and 9th. It's Daniel Falkingham in the number 54. In 10th, it's going to be Seth DeMerchant for FGR Excel. And that is owned by Joe Graff Jr. Colin Bowden going to be starting in the inside of row 6 for RFK Racing. In the number 17 machine, Matthew Zwack, another Nitro Circus driver, in the number 99. Starting in 12th. After that, it's Ryan Luza for M80 on the inside of row 7. Donovan Strauss for Williams Esports. A lot behind that Williams name in racing. Femi Olot for Oxygen Esports, starting on the inside of row 8. After him, it's going to be Parker White, another Williams Esports driver, just to his outside, starting in 16th. From there, Garrett Lowe in the number 89, BS Competition. Sees him starting on the inside. Taylor Hurst to his outside for Dillon Motorsports. Of course, Austin Dillon being a part of that for the number 33 car. Wyatt Tinsley starting on the inside of row 10. In the number 20, you've got Jimmy Mullis then to the outside there for Kevin Harvick, Inc. In the 20th position. We move a little bit farther back to row 11. Jordy Lopez starting on the inside, another BS Competition driver in that number 90. E-Racer driver Ray Alfala, Mr. 4-time, is going to try and come around, see if he can get another win here in that number 69 machine. Garrett Maines for FGR Excel, starting on the inside of row 12. Appropriately in the number 12 machine, Zach Novak, who took us around for Oxygen Esports, will be starting to the outside of that row in the number 5. From there, Michael Guest for 23X11. We've got Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. Yes, that Michael Jordan, the owner of that team. Bobby Zelensky on the outside in the number 18 machine. From there, on the inside of row 14, Keegan Leahy. Last time we had a winner, it was him in the number 23 car for 23X11. Then you've got Michael Cozy Jr. on Front Row Motorsports next to him in the number 38. After that, we get to row number 15, Jonathan Delaney for Dillon Motorsports in the number 3. He'll be flanked by Graham Boland to his outside in the number 48 car. Just a couple more to go here. Row 16 sees Tucker Minter for William Byron Esports. Of course, William Byron, a great NASCAR driver who owns that team. Ryan Doucette on the outside in the number 55 machine of row number 16. You've got Nick Ottinger for William Byron Esports starting the inside in the number 25. Then Steve Letarte owned Letarte Esports for Dylan Alt in the number 40 machine. Just a couple more from there in this field here today as Briar LaPrade for JR Motorsports starting on the inside in the number 88. Then you've got E-Racer driver of Tyler Gary on the outside in the number 42. That's owned by Kligerman and Castle, that team. Timmy Holmes starting then on the inside of row 19 for RFK Racing in the number 6. Derek Bordeaux for Front Row Motorsports, going to be on the outside of him in the number 34. Last two on the field, Matt Busa, and then you've got Kwame Scott in the number 36. A full field of 40. Blake, I believe you've caught up with our pole sitter, though.
I have. It is Colin Keister. We've seen a lot of great performances out of Tony Kanaan Esports as of late, but this time it's the 66 who was up front to start this one. So Colin, obviously great track position at a track where that is very important. How are you feeling about the next 60 laps?
Oh yeah, just want to thank the guys at Dead Zone for putting us a good Q set together here. We put down a heater there in qualifying, but I hope the race pace is just as good. But we're going to find out here real soon.
All right, 64 career starts. This is your second pole, but obviously big race here right before the postseason. How are you guys trying to attack this one strategy-wise? Because, again, it's so important at this racetrack.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the win here. I'm sitting 20th in points, and I need to get a win to make the playoffs. So I'm going to do anything I can to keep the car up front and end this in victory lane.
All right, you got your teammates starting right behind you. We'll let you go. Best of luck tonight, Colin.
Thank you.
Drivers lined up and ready to go as they come down the back stretch. It is full of tradition, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and while they aren't physical bricks that they can kiss, who is going to be able to do so maybe metaphorically here today? And will that pole position count for that number 66 of Colin Keister? It's a track known for being difficult to try and overtake, although not impossible from what we understand. We'll talk to Ryan about that in a little bit, because for now, they come out of turn 4 towards the yard of bricks. The iRacing pace car going to unleash them. 60 laps here today. What kind of race are we going to get now that we have returned to the oval here at Indianapolis? Looks like the pace car is in. Now Colin has control of the field as they wait patiently for the flag from Barney. And there it is. Green flag is out. It is a flight down into turn 1 for our field of 40.
Early on, you're going to see a lot of drivers start to make some moves 3 wide. Colin Bowden was the first that caught my eye in the number 17 that went down to the inside to try and make that move. And, you know, Ryan, that's something that we're going to see throughout this race. But I also think, talking to a couple of these drivers, looking at how to make passes, that outside lane, as you can see everybody starting to form up, the draft going to be a big key tonight. So you're going to have to be really calculated in how you try to make your passes early on.
1,000%. I mean, if you're able to be on that outside lane, yes, it's the unoptimal lane, right? Obviously, the preferred lane is the inside group. But if you're stuck on that outside lane and there's a bunch of guys stacking up on your inside, you can try and roll the top side here. As we're on board with Colin Bowden here, he's trying to fight to the inside there. Just really, really tough to get in your groove here. So these guys are really shuffling hard to find their place.
It does have that inside line just to the inside of Donovan Strauss. Looks like as he rides those curbs down to the bottom, that's actually going to cause him to drift up a little bit, maybe touch the side of the 51. Just in front of them, though, as we've jumped up, a little bit of a bad run from, I think that's Caden Honeycutt in the 8. That's going to check up to Merchant.
Yeah, it looked like Caden Honeycutt got tight there on the inside lane, or maybe even got a little bit of loose going over those curbs. So definitely a little bit out of balance there, Blake.
Well, and you could see what we were talking about kind of playing out right there with Seth DeMerchant, that because Honeycutt slipped up, he got a little bit of a run, but he didn't quite have enough. He didn't have any help to the inside, and he ends up losing a spot to Malik Gray, to Daniel Falkingham, who stay committed, stay in line, and are able to make their way by. So if you're Steven Wilson right here, you see him pulling out a line, going to the inside of Casey Kerwin. You have a little bit of a gap to play with, so you have some time to try and make this pass, but if you don't make it quick enough, you don't want to be a lone car on the inside because you're going to lose a ton of position. So if you're Steven Wilson, you basically have one more corner to either get the job done, which it looks like he's able to do off of turn 2, but otherwise it was going to be a long straightaway for Wilson with no draft.
Looked like one of the Williams eSports cars there, just going to scrape the exit of 2. Easy to do off of that corner. We've been getting some 3 wide farther in the pack, like right here, coming into turn 3. Oh, that drifts up into the 22, as I think that's Luza getting very loose. He's going to gather it back up somehow, and then shooting up the inside. My goodness, that is the 69 of Ray Alfala. Mr. 4-time has made his presence known.
That's just the product of a stack up here at Indianapolis. Everybody's fighting for that groove, fighting for that spot. And you can see the draft here now. You see the 12 getting absolutely freight trained by all the cars on the outside lane. And that's because of the draft. They have so much more momentum down the front straightaway here.
Set as we watched on board with the 55, still trying to ride that high line a little bit. He's got Garrett Lowe just below him currently as they drift off of 2. Looks like a bit of a loose moment there for the 89 car, who thankfully gets it back up to the top, but doesn't have the momentum. Just to his high side, Garrett Maines tries to see if he can now go by, but now he's stuck on the outside, Ryan.
Yeah, no, and that's the product of that draft. Everybody's in that outside lane, going down the straightaways and pushing each other. You saw Garrett Lowe stuck on the inside lane there, nowhere that he could go, and now Garrett Maines is trying to capitalize, rolling the top side on him.
Yeah, he's going to have to try and find himself an opening as he now falls behind Brian LaPrade as we come towards turn 1 once again. Looks like we've got a bit of a run here for one of our nitrous circus machines. Blake, what you got?
Well, you can look at Dylan Duval, and by the way, I think you got to give credit where it's due here with Dylan Duval. Kind of his performance recently kind of reminds me of what we've seen last year out of Garrett Lowe, that he got the win, and then all of a sudden, here's the pickup in performance. He had a great run at Chicago 2 weeks ago. He's out here at Indianapolis, but Ryan, I got to say, this is a spectacular-looking number 41 Nitro Circus car. Again, so many of these teams bring out some great paint schemes. See Next Level Racing a partner with this team, but this is a heck of a paint scheme that Dylan Duval has right here, riding in the 4th position.
About to say, beautiful paint scheme on his Nitro Circus machine. I believe this is a throwback to his wins a couple years ago. Justin Miller could probably correct me on that one, but massive run for him being in the top 4 here. You mentioned momentum is so important as a race car driver. It's confidence. You saw the onboard with Duval there. He almost had it looked like he had a little bit of a smirk there to him. He's feeling good. He's feeling ready to race. And you see Steven Wilson trying to challenge there, but just doesn't have the momentum to peek to the inside. That side draft isn't doing enough.
Well, I'm glad I have you guys here, because the IndyCar nerd in me thought that was maybe a Ganassi throwback to the 90s when they had those sort of lightning bolts on the side of their red cars. He's still stuck in line, sitting in 4th position. This is really settled in from here. Now, I understand they can make it to about halfway on fuel, Ryan. So what are we expecting? You said tires don't go off a whole lot. Is it more of an overcut kind of night then?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing here, you want to make sure you give yourself enough of a buffer to the cars around you so that you can make sure that you can either A, shuffle into the same spot you are so you don't have to fight as hard to get by people. Because as you can see right here, everybody's just kind of in a line. They don't want to step out of line. They don't want to lose that draft. If they lose that draft, we saw Steven Wilson earlier last lap trying to look to the inside of Duval and couldn't make the pass because the draft on the outside lane is so important. So it's going to be really important to be here getting into a nice spot. As you see here, the race analysis here of this race, once again, 60 laps distance, 150 miles. Pit road speed will be 55 miles per hour. It takes about 45 to 50 seconds to get down pit road, and these drivers do have 3 sets of tires available to them. And as we mentioned before, pit window is anywhere between 28 and 32 laps. A lot of guys can be balancing that fuel mileage.
Thanks for that, Ryan. And if you want all the updates and the latest news here about eNASCAR, just pull out your mobile device and scan our QR code on the screen now, and you can get signed up for our newsletter. So great stuff here for this season. Seen a lot of new interesting things added to it, so you definitely want to try and keep up with what is going on in this championship as the M80 machine still chases down the back stretch, Blake.
And you can see how things are playing out now. Colin Keister would have one heck of a shakeup here if he goes to victory lane. He mentioned it at the top of the show. He's kind of sitting in 20th in points right now, so a win would vault him up to the front. Then you would have Parker White, who is in contention for the regular season championship right now, who could almost miss the playoffs at this juncture if we get another first-time winner at Pocono next week. But you can see how they run right now. Nick Ottinger just hanging on by a thread. Casey Kerwin, he's had a spectacular season, but yet here he is running in the 6th position. He doesn't have a win. It kind of reminds me of his championship season. He didn't get a win until late in the year at Pocono before he finally contended for the title. But also Malik Ray, look at him in 21st. He is 14 points beneath getting his win becoming eligible because he needs to be in the top 20 in points. So as he sits right now, he's doing a really good job. But the problem with Malik is that if you're running in 8th right now, there's not a whole lot to make up after that. So with Malik, we'll see if he's going to be able to do that.
And ironically, our leader of this race is the man that he's chasing out there to try and crack into those top 20. So he really doesn't want Colin Keister to take this victory. That'll have big implications for Malik Ray in that number 7 as we stay single file through the south end of the track through 1 and 2 once again. Haven't seen a whole lot of action. Everybody really getting into the meat and potatoes of this race.
I'm curious here to wonder what the strategy is of these guys up front here. You have Colin Keister leading. We talked about the draft so far in this race, right? I wonder if a lot of these guys are just totally content with riding second, third, fourth in line, letting Colin Keister go out there, burn all that fuel. I guarantee you some of these guys probably aren't going wide open down the straightaways because they're able to just maintain with the draft.
You know, that's a good point, that this one could be a bit of a strategy race. I mean, that's not unheard of at this track, both here in the sim and in real life, using fuel to try and get yourself that little bit of an advantage, especially if we get those green flag stops, Blake. That could be critical.
It could be. And again, talking to a lot of these drivers and teams kind of coming into this race, the one thing that they told me was that, well, they can go a little bit past that halfway marker in terms of fuel. In fact, some of the numbers I heard was about 36, 38 laps, somewhere around that point, that would be the fuel window that they could go to. The one thing this opens up, if you kind of think about this race like Pocono that we just came from in the NASCAR Cup Series, is that at a certain point, you can come down, take 4 tires. You're not going to go a lap down at this racetrack. So there's a lot of strategy that can open up, whether teams and drivers are going to short pit and try to hope for a yellow at some point, or try to get some clean air and a little bit of track position, or whether they're going to go long, maybe try to short fuel it, cut out some time on a pit stop, because that's another thing. Cutting out time on these pit stops has become so important in this next-gen era. So we'll see if these teams, what their approach is, and I think we'll start to see that in about 10 or 12 laps or so, kind of what the game plan is for a couple of these drivers and teams.
You notice this number 10 car is getting awful close to the back of Dylan Duval. I think Steven Wilson has had enough of just sitting in line, and he wants to do something. Well, look behind them, way in the back of the pack. They are not sitting single file here. I kind of noticed this a bit early on, that it seemed it was somewhat disorganized. This is Tucker Minter with Nick Ottinger to his inside. They've also got Tyler Gary battling with Jonathan Delaney back in the very back of the pack. But this might be all for naught. These drivers kind of fighting for positions all the way down, and it looks like 32nd, 33rd.
And you see Delaney, he's going to pull all the way to the inside, try and get off that side draft and just find himself a gap in line, which he does, and shuffles back in there. So, you know, it's just tough to make up that ground, right? You know, it's a game of sacrifice. You know, do I want to try and gain this one spot or risk losing 5 of them?
Well, it is always risk versus reward in racing. Who can manage that risk the best and reap the rewards in the end? That's the big question we're trying to answer. Still early on, only lap 13 in this 60-lap event. We wait for that pit window to see if some of Blake's numbers are more accurate. Will we see a more wide-open window here? Will that take us far? Let's take a little bit of a listen in and ride with our driver, Nick Ottinger, on the number 25. Feather of the throttle through these corners. This is definitely one of the more unique ovals, right? You know, we mentioned that Pocono is up next, but often it's forgotten that even though this was the first oval in North America, purpose-built here at Indianapolis, as we check out the battle for second now, that there's not really any other ovals that are rectangular like this, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-of-a-kind oval. I mean, heck, the track is so iconic. It inspired one of the corners over at Pocono. So obviously, this place has had such a history in the IndyCar Series. Now, the NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series takes action here at the historic 2.5-mile speedway.
Yeah.
Anything here with Cody Bias, you know, what a season it has been for him, right? Running 38th in the points coming into this race. And again, if you remember back at Las Vegas, he pretty much had that win in the bag before a late race incident. But we see so many veterans up here at the front of this field, guys who have been in this series for a really long time. You think of Colin Keister, who's been in for a number of years. Cody Bias, whose time in this series goes a ways back. There's a lot of experience up here at the front of the field, which I don't think is any shock about Indiana. And, you know, something else that I kind of point out here, look at who's running first and third. I can't imagine any track, Joe, where it's more special to not only see some drivers up at the front of the field, but specifically Tony Kanaan Esports with his history at this racetrack. Sure, he's got to be grinning ear to ear right now watching Colin and Vicente running first and third.
No doubt. I was there in 2013 when he took that victory, and I can tell you that the crowd absolutely loved it. So I'm sure the fans watching are cheering them on here today. That was a great move from Wilson. We could see in the background that M80 car just straight up went around the outside of Duval. Again, not easy to do that. He's found some real speed. Whatever setup he's got on the car, Ryan, it seems to be pretty pliable.
Well, we all know Steven Wilson's one of the more aggressive drivers in the series, right? He wants to get to the front. He wants to lead all the laps, and we saw it right there. He was able to jump to the outside, use that momentum. But the other thing, too, is clean air. He had all the clean air on his nose. He was able to use the side draft and get to the right rear quarter panel of Duval, and it worked to his favor. He was able to use that draft down the straightaway, clear Duval, and Duval, luckily for him, found himself a spot right in 5th place.
Let's not forget about that team's championship, too. Tony Kanaan Esports is currently down in 5th in that team's points. So I'm pretty sure having a 1-3 is not going to do them any harm on that front. We'll see how it winds up in the end as they come around to the front stretch once again. Keep your eyes peeled here. We've got drivers that are starting to make moves, so it might not just be business as usual. We might start to see a little bit more excitement around here as we watch from on board. Keister, our current leader, back at the field chasing.
Well, again, the one thing about Vicente here, if you're following the William Byron Esports Bracket Challenge, that battle for third, that's a matchup between Salas and Wilson. I actually picked Salas in that, so I'm kind of rooting for him right now to keep that spot. But we got a number of matchups that are kind of playing out towards the front of the field.
And we have to also remember that, you know, Tony Kanaan, not just the owner of this team, but he races here on iRacing frequently. We, of course, see him running in the Porsche Superstar Challenge as well over there, and constantly showing up and doing little teasers for the new features that they release and helping them develop the sim. So can't thank him enough for all that he's done for iRacing itself. Not just for his history here at Indianapolis. So he's given a lot to our sport as an IndyCar racer with his expertise. But will he be rewarded with a team owner victory? Actually, you know, that makes me curious because he's a relatively new one. I guess he doesn't have a team owner victory here at Indy yet, does he?
It is not.
Ooh, so that
first time we've been at this track in a number of years, but Vicente Salas has kind of carried the torch, went to victory lane earlier this year, but it's been a couple of years since Colin Keister went to victory lane at Charlotte a number of years ago.
More information on the series, of course. If you want to try and see if you can stack up against these drivers, go to iRacing.com/eNASCAR, and you can get onto iRacing yourself. See if you're quick enough to compete against the fastest eNASCAR drivers in the world, and maybe work your way up. It's a bit of a ladder, Ryan, to get to this level, but that's the beautiful thing about sim racing. It really democratizes this sport, and if you really think you got what it takes, you can give it a shot.
Oh man, I mean, I cannot stress to you guys how difficult it is to jump into iRacing. I've been racing for several years before I finally got onto the service back in 2018. And when I tell you it was a challenge, it was a massive challenge. But we see a big change for second. Steven Wilson has moved his way to the second position. I believe we're on the outside of bias. He has been incredibly aggressive, jumping to the outside. And I'm watching the attitude of that 10 machine going into the corner. It just sets on that right rear tire. Whoever built that setup built a really good long run car that has a lot of drive off the corner.
You know, we mentioned during some of our look back, Blake, that we have only one multi-time champion in the eNASCAR series, Ray Alfala. But current points leader this season is our current reigning champion, Steven Wilson, moving himself up into second place. I get the feeling he's got his sights set on finally breaking that stranglehold that Ray's got.
Well, Wilson's capable of going back-to-back, and if anything, has shown a degree of speed and pace this season that is I got to say, it's awfully more impressive than what we saw a year ago out of him. Again, last year, it was a struggling year until he kind of collected that win and started to turn his season around. But since the drop of the green flag here in 2024, and it hasn't mattered what type of racetrack it is, super speedways, these big ovals like Indianapolis, the road courses, he went and got a third at the Chicago Street Course last week. Every single type of track, he has just continued to improve and continued to be dominant. And, I mean, there's a reason that Alan and Camille pick him pretty much every week. I mean, it's not a bad pick. You almost can't go wrong with the speed he has shown just about everywhere we've been to this year.
Bios gets up to the outside as Duvall down to the bottom. In fact, he's got a partner running with him. Casey Kerwin gives a big push down the backstretch. It looks like they might both be able to get this pass done. And this has been the fight for what is essentially fourth position because the top two are running away. Salas has decided he wants to try and chase after them. And this has caused quite the eruption of action, Ryan.
Yeah, no, Bias, you could see he's losing the handle on that race car. He had a pretty decent-sized slide off of turn number 1, and that choked up his momentum there, and it really caused a stack-up coming off of 2, and it's just a no-brainer. Everybody's trying to file to the inside. You see the draft, they're pushing. It's almost like we're tandem racing here at Indianapolis down the straightaways.
Yeah, nice big shove there for Caden Honeycutt. That leaves some side-by-side as we got a driver heading to pit lane. Is that the 33? It is indeed. So that's Taylor Hurst.
So we talked about the fact that that window could be up to 38 laps as you see a couple of cars almost squeeze into the outside wall. We talked about whether drivers, if they're going to short pit and not go a lap down, this would be the opportunity to do it, Ryan. And I think once you see one, you typically see a lot more join them. So Taylor Hurst comes down this time. He's pitting. I would imagine that a couple more may follow him this time because, again, tires don't matter a ton, but it does matter enough. You get a little bit of clean air, you can probably jump a couple of spots, but it doesn't look like there's any takers this time.
Yeah, well, here's the other part, too, is the fact that he just pitted all by himself. We see all these guys riding in a pack all down the front straightaway. They have so much of a draft going down these straightaways. I cannot stress how important it is to be in that group and have that tow down these straightaways. With Taylor Hurst pitting all by himself, yes, he is going to have a bit of an advantage and maybe be able to pass a car, but if all these guys continue to stay out, I don't think he's going to have much of an advantage at all. If anything, he's going to lose spots.
On screen, that is the playoff points and where Malik Ray now sits to try and be in the top 20. Now remember, he needs to be in that top 20 in points by the end of our regular season, or else he is not eligible for the playoffs. That's the 7 car that you see just below the red line. 13 points difference. And that number 14 car above it, that's Seth the Merchant. He is about 3 positions behind Malik. So now, Blake, now basically it's in the hands of Malik. He's got to make those passes because he's already ahead of the guy that he's trying to chase.
Well, and it's tough, again, when you're in the position he's in. We saw that he was 13 points back, but he's in 7, so there's really not a whole lot further up you can go at this point, but can still try and work with his Spire Motorsports teammate who's just up the road, and Casey Kerwin. You know, this is another driver the last couple of weeks, after struggling in his rookie campaign in this series, really started to turn things around. And Daniel Falkingham even kind of struggled at the beginning part of this year, but has really put together some solid finishes. Currently sits 15th in the standings, and with the playoff picture and the way it's shaping up here with 2 races left, probably going to take a win. But still impressed with Falkingham continuing to improve and putting himself in a good position. I know we talk a lot about the playoffs, but so much of the battle is just staying in this series. It's something you have to fight for every single season, and right now Falkingham well above that 20th place cutoff, trying to keep his spot and not have to fall back into the Contender Series potentially.
Get a couple more diving into pit lane. Those of you with eagle eyes may have noticed we got an interesting situation developing here. That's the 33 of Hurst that already pitted, and the leaders are catching. If we get lap traffic involved, how is that going to mix it up? Or will our leaders decide maybe now's the time to pit, try to follow in some of those that have come in a little bit earlier? Matt Busa amongst them. It looks like Tyler Gary as well as Kwame Scott.
Well, you see Steven Wilson's putting all the pressure on Colin Keister here. Keister just had a pretty decent slide through 3 there. He's just fighting here. He feels Steven Wilson breathing down his neck right now. He knows that he's going to apply as much pressure as possible. We have a couple more cars peeling off back there. I believe that's Femi back there. Yes, it is. It looks like Graham Bolin as well. Oh, and Nick Ottinger as well has pitted.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, and we get a caution. Somebody's had an issue. Looks like Gary, maybe.
It's one of the e-racer cars, but this is why that pitting strategy was so important, because if you didn't go a lap down, all of a sudden you're going to flip this field and go right to the front. As you see one of the e-racer cars spun out, that is, I believe it's Ray Alfala.
Yeah, and this was a very curious one. I was able to find it, and there was an accident exiting pit lane. So Scott and our e-racer car managed to get tangled together, Tyler Gary with him, exiting pit lane, which is kind of understandable since they were strangely side by side trying to race their way out of there. It's awful narrow through there, Ryan, so kind of one of those things where someone had to give way and neither was willing to.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, going down that pit exit there, you see it right there. It's flat there. It's the apron. It's the apron. There's no baking there. It's not meant to be raced on, right? So, you know, you want to hustle. You want to try and gain all that track position as you can and try and, you know, shuffle in the line the best you can. But at the end of the day, when you're side by side in a, you know, compromising spot like that, it's, you know, it's an easy situation to get yourself in trouble.
Well, Blake, let's put you up on the box here. What is going through your mind if you're one of these team owners that has seen your driver not pit? We've had a pit stop. We've got drivers still on the lead lap. How do you handle this from here?
Well, it's not all for naught at this point. You're going to lose a lot of the positions that those cars that did come in gave you. Now, you are going to have a couple lap fresher tires, so you have a little bit to work with here. You're going to be able to make it to the end on fuel from this point, assuming that we may not have a couple more overtimes. So if you're somebody like a Steven Wilson or a Colin Keister, you're going to restart here probably a little bit outside the top 10, which is plenty of time to make up those spots. But we have seen it's been really difficult to try and make those moves. So at this point, you can't really worry about what you've lost. You just have to execute here on pit road, make the proper adjustments, and try to put your driver and car in the best position possible.
So that was Kwame Scott that you saw staying out on the track. He's going to get the wave around since everybody in front of him did at pit. Let's take a look at this incident. Again, definitely one of the more unique ones that we're going to see here that have caused a yellow here at IMS. And there they are side by side coming out of the pit lane, Ryan. Both of them don't want to give it up, and eventually it narrows down here.
Yeah, just trying to get all you can here. Kwame just kind of squeezes there. Tyler Gary, I mean, there's just... Whoa! It's a game of give or take there, right? You know, it's a real bad position to put yourself in, being too wide there. I don't know if they were trying to shuffle into being single file there, but regardless, it ended up in a caution and, you know, really messed up a couple people's day here.
Oh, Bowden.
Oh, a little bit.
With a lucky save. Yeah, I think he slapped it just slightly. I'm not sure if he got too much damage out of it, but the big thing was he missed the stationary car in front of him with less than an inch to spare. And, man, I didn't realize how much that car had been chucked into traffic with everybody still at full tilt there on the short chute.
Well, and this isn't an easy pit road exit either. This is very similar to what you see at Homestead, right? We've seen guys like Denny Hamlin and Ryan Blaney have trouble exiting the pits there in real life. This is a very similar situation here. Very flat apron. It's very enticing to try and push as hard as you can.
We're going to take a quick break with this being under caution. We'll be back with more racing here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
What does fearless look like? Like sliding through a glimmer of daylight?
Side by side for the top spot.
Like trading paint with a champion?
Oh, and he spins it.
Like starting in the back of the pack and stopping at nothing till everyone is choking on your dust?
Who gets it done? Time, baby.
What does fearless look like? Find out for yourself.
Let's go!
The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series.
Every time you sit behind the wheel, you buckle up for the unexpected. You get ready to take on the competition and brace yourself for the chaos, the speed, the weather, the unknown. But above all, when strapping in, you put trust in yourself, your intuition. Make it your guide to win. your drive to win.
He's a winner in this.
And nothing is going to stop you from winning.
When you want.
Welcome back here to iRacing. We are watching the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with eNASCAR, with our drivers set and ready to go double file and restarting with 31 laps to go. Just about the halfway point of this race, Blake, and it has been really shuffled up at the top.
Well, again, we have so many new names up towards the front of the field that we haven't talked about all night. How about Garrett Lowe? Ray Alfalla is going to be restarting in the second position. Matt Busa, Taylor Hirsch, so many of these drivers who took the opportunity to short pit. Now, if you're Keister, Salas, Wilson, they're restarting about 7th or 8th, so they're still in prime position as well to have a shot at this thing. So a couple of cars that were in the back, perhaps not as fast, but they have track position, and we know how important that is. 30-lap dash, this could get really exciting.
Garrett Lowe on the point, looking for the restart. Pace car is in. He's holding them for a long time, and green flag is now finally out. Ray Alfalla gets caught napping just a little bit, and Taylor Hurst, who is still trying to... No, he's not trying to get his lap back. He did get his lap back. He's going to be restarting up at the front. That worked out beautifully for the 33, going from a lap down to now battling for P2.
See a lot of shuffling further back in the pack. Everybody's trying to find themselves a spot in line, 3x3 formation, all the way you see in the back half of the field there. Everybody's fighting for that position.
That was almost 4 wide in the back there, but they managed to make it out of turn 2. Thankfully, everybody's still running here today. Only Briar LaPrade has been our single retirement in this race. They're going to get a little bit single file up at the front, although third place Matt Busa finds himself now tussling with Taylor Hurst to the inside behind them. Graham Bolin giving watch with Femi Olot just behind them. They all fly down the main stretch over the Artabricks once again.
Well, again, the one thing that I've seen, at least out of this opening lap, is the fact that those cars that are on fresh tires haven't made a ton of headway. Again, the draft is so important with the moves that these drivers are making, and you'll see back here, this is Cody Bias. Remember, he was running up in the second position. Not only is he behind a ton of cars that pit early, he lost a lot of ground in the midst of the cars that were on his strategy. A lot of two-tire calls that we saw for these guys to keep track position up towards the front of the field. So Bias takes 4, loses a little bit of ground on the pits.
And let's look at that playoff points. Malik has, well, he was up there briefly, and just as soon as we bring it up, he falls right back out. I'm sure that's going to be frustrating for him. Just briefly pops up in there. There must be quite a bit of shuffling there in the mid-pack where he's relegated right now that is constantly moving that one around. We talk about, rather be lucky than good. We heard that adage brought out in the pre-race in the countdown to green, Ryan. And for these drivers that pitted, I mean, only 4 or 5 laps difference on the tires. They got extremely lucky. Whoa,
one side race going back in the pack, yeah. Looks like he may have saved it. I think we're going to stay green, but yeah, I mean, the greatest gift of all is track position, right? Especially in a race like this where the draft is so important. Having that clean air, being able to kind of move your car around in the corners. You don't want to be stuck in the back of the pack racing 2x2 like this. You want to be one of those guys, like Garrett Lowe, Ray Alfalla, Taylor Hurst, Matt Busa. You want to be able to move around a little bit. Yeah, you want to stay in the draft on the straightaways, but you want to be able to peek out. You want to be able to get some air on that nose, be able to get that rotation through the center.
You were correct that it was Parker White who lost it briefly. He gathered it back up, but he's down in 34th. Second in the overall points, but the one on the outside looking in because he still needs a win. In fact, has not won yet in the eNASCAR series. So he's trying to break that duck and as well take his ticket into the playoffs later on. Diving down to the inside, one of our M80 cars now trying to make moves.
Again, that's Steven Wilson, and he's one of the few that has been up towards the front of the field. We saw him kind of dip out of line and make that move. I don't I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get by Salas, but for the most part up here, it's been pretty procedural. The cars are having difficulty, if you're up here in the top 5, getting past that car in front of you. The further back you get, the worse the dirty air is, all of those things. But Wilson's been one of the few that kind of raced from the back half of the top 10 and got up towards the front. As he's trying to make some moves, but again, it takes a long time for that to happen. As Dylan Duval, that'll be him poking out a line, trying to get by Nick Ottinger. The problem with Parker White, who we talked about kind of having to gather that up off of turn 2, he loses a ton of points, but I guess the refuge for him is look who's up in the top 5. A ton of names that if they win, may not shake up the playoff picture all that much. Garrett Lowe already has a couple of wins. Ray Alfala is not going to make the top 20 even with 2 more wins. Taylor Hurst is somewhat in the same position, so even if one of these drivers up front stays there, you're not necessarily going to shake up the playoff picture all that much.
Kerwin manages to get the 77 underneath Colin Keister. That's going to move him up into 8th as they go single file once again down the main straight towards turn 1. Things finally settling in once again. Looks like maybe Donovan Strauss trying to make a position on the number 14 as well. As we ride on board just ahead of them. This race is brought to you by Coke Zero Sugar. Is it the best Coke ever? Try and decide. And Logitech. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheel and pedals of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And the McConey Setup Shop. McConey Setup Shop. Our setups, your victories. And finally, Sunoco. From fueling your favorite NASCAR teams to filling up at the pump, Sunoco is trusted to help vehicles perform at their peak. Sunoco, performance is what we do. As we watch this race fly down that main straight towards turn 1 once again, you can see once again we've returned to mostly single file racing, but the impetus has now changed. We're seeing a lot more moves. It's just that it seems they come and go relatively quickly here, Blake. You kind of have to make it happen. If not, you got to get back in line.
And that's exactly what's happening here with Taylor Hurst. Matt Busa kind of riding around in that 3rd position, getting a challenge from Hurst, who doesn't have the drafting help. You could see Olot and Boson as well as Wilson taking advantage of that. So Taylor Hurst goes for a move, doesn't work. He loses 3 spots. That's trouble on the backstretch. That's Zach Novak. Again, spun in the grass. It was off the racing surface, and it's not going to trigger the iRacing yellow flag. Again, it is automatic game cautions that are thrown. If it's off the racing surface, sometimes it's not going to trigger that yellow flag, and that looks like the case right there for Zach Novak.
Absolute disaster for the 5 driver. He actually made a little contact with Caden Honeycutt side to side. I'm not sure if Caden got loose or if he just thought he was clear and tried to move down out of turn 2. But whatever the case, the result was Novak sent to the grass. Let's see if we can analyze it here, Ryan. What's your take on if this was loose or just trying to move himself to the inside?
It looks like 2 guys just kind of beaten in the same place on the corner exit. You see Zach Novak in his Coke Zero Sugar machine just hits the inside wall. Obviously going to do some pretty decent damage to the left side. That's going to put him in a real deep hole for the rest of this race.
Last on track. Every single driver's on the lead lap right now. If he can Leahy the next one he has to catch, but it's 11 seconds up the road, and we've only had a single caution flag so far in this race. Battle for the lead seems to have separated. Instead, it's more of a fight for P2. In fact, Femi Olot says, I think I'd like a piece of that. Ray Alfala does not guard the inside, rides the rim, but it looks like that won't pay off. 22 with the quicker line is starting to edge ahead.
Well, again, if Alfala can hold on to this spot out of the corner, I think he has it. If Wilson goes with him, we'll see the decision that's made. And in fact, no, Wilson thinks the same of Alfala. Maybe he doesn't think the 69 is that strong of a race car right now, so he'll try to give help to Olot and Boson, who is just going to be able to slide up in front of Ray Alfala. But again, that was a battle right there that Wilson gets to determine the outcome of that positional battle. And you can see right there how well Wilson has been able to cart through traffic. He's able to get up to 3rd and now has his sights set on pushing the 22 and trying to chase down Garrett Lowe.
Well, and I have to ask, Blake, in your experience covering this series, with various allegiances between technical allegiances and things such as that, or the teams, What do you see this playing out? Is this who's your buddy, or is it who's your obligation?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think at a certain point you just have to think of what's the move that I can make that's going to best help out my car, even if it's not working with a teammate or somebody that you're technically aligned with that you work on setups together. So I think Wilson right there, you look at what Ray Alfala has been doing. He gets the track position. That car's a little bit loose, so I think that's an assessment there for Wilson that he was just a little bit out of shape. And feels like the 22 has a better driving car, so he elected to go with him. And it's been a good decision. They pulled away from Alfala, and they're starting to pull right up to the back bumper at Garrett Lowe. And Ryan, I think you can probably attest to that a number of times, that sometimes you're in a position like this where, yes, the draft and how you work well with people together comes into play. It's not necessarily just teammates. You're kind of thinking selfishly at that point, what's going to help you try to chase somebody down?
Well, you look at a position like Steven Wilson's in right now, right? He has about a 10-car length gap to the next car behind him, as you see him pushing Femi all the way to the rear bumper of Garrett Lowe. But, you know, when you have a big gap like that, you're more enticed to make those moves as they have contact to the back. That's Matthew Zwack getting pushed all the way to the fourth lane. We're 4 wide off of turn number 3.
Oh my goodness, down on the inside, Tinsley is going to be able to pull ahead of them. It worked out best for him, although he is getting loose. And Femi Ola, he is going to move to the lead now. It's all changed around. Steven Wilson is going to go with him. Lowe goes from first to third in a single straightaway. Still 3 wide down here, farther in the pack. My goodness, if we don't get another yellow, it'll be against the best efforts of these drivers.
Right,
there it goes. There's the caution. Tinsley, unfortunately, while he picked right the first time, the second time it did not go so well.
That's just 3 cars going for the same real estate. 3 wide off of turn number 1 there. It's a single groove racetrack for the most part. When you got guys shoving it 3 wide like that, you're going to eventually meet in the middle.
Oh, man. Well, this might change things as well. 19 laps to go as the caution comes out. They'll have to wait a bit before that pit window opens up, or pit lane opens up here. Blake, they've got the fuel to make it to the end. We didn't see tires do much before, but that was because everybody was more or less on the similar enough strategy. Is this something where maybe we only see a couple drivers towards the back play a gamble, or is everybody going to stay out?
History would show from this series and kind of what we've been seeing the last couple of years that I think if you're up front, you got to keep that track position. There's no justification, I would think, from taking 4, losing all that time, losing all that track position, because again, how many Coke Series races have we watched the last number of years where we get inside the last 20 laps and you don't have time to make those fresh tires work? You get a string of yellows, and after that, there's really nothing you can do. So if I'm up front, I'm definitely keeping this track position. Now, on the flip side, once you get back to about 10th or 15th, 20th, some of these drivers that need a win, why not take the gamble and hope that tires would make the difference? But I just don't see that happening, especially if you're up in this top 10. I think it's a pretty easy decision to stay out here.
And guess where Malik Ray is? 13th, right in the realm that you were saying it might be worth gambling, but he's giving up a lot of that track position. Does he try and make the move here? Let's watch and see. Down to the pit entry now, because the pit should be open. I'm very curious here, Ryan, what his decision is going to be.
You see a lot of guys starting to follow the inside lane. Will anybody fake out? Will they kind of peek out at the last minute? You see a couple guys kind of dipping out. Will they all pit? See a couple takers. For the most part, everybody is coming down pit road. We got a lot of cars taking the gamble and staying on the racetrack. I like this.
Wow.
I like this split strategy.
I don't like this.
I like it because we get to watch it. I don't get to be in it. But look, we see Garrett Lowe. He's staying out here. Garrett Lowe was one of those drivers at Charlotte. He did the inverse of this. He pitted after being involved in an incident with about, I think what was it, like 10, 15 to go, shuffled his way back through the field and won that race by a hair. If you're one of those guys that pit, I wouldn't count them out either, but man, that track position is going to be tough to overcome.
While we let them sort that out in pit lane and everybody emerge, let's take a look at what brought us to this point and make this really varied call on the track. And there's the 3 wide. Like I said, Tinsley, unfortunately, jokers to the left and others to the right. And I've lost the quote already. But the result is that he winds up the one stuck, not in the middle, but in the wall here with the safety barrier collecting him.
Again, you can see Timmy Holmes, he makes a late dive, and unfortunately there, I don't know if the 6 knew that they were 3 wide, but he kind of squeezes up to where Tinsley and Zwack, they have nowhere to go. They make contact with the outside wall and into each other. But Cody Bias, again, what a night that Cody Bias has had, was running up in second, now finds himself behind the 30th spot, is able to get through that wreck. This is Derek Bordeaux, the number 34. Again, you can see behind, Timmy Holmes just kind of squeezes up, and 3 wide is tight already as it is at Indy, but just not enough room there. Jordy Lopez does a great job missing that one, and Bordeaux, excuse me, just squeezes by Matthew Zwack.
I mean, he went low, he went high, he was slaloming through that wreck. That was fantastic car positioning from the number 34, and that rewarded him with 27th after pit stops. Now, let's see, the highest of the drivers that did stop is Femi Olot, so he'll come out in 15th. Garrett Lowe re-inherits the lead after he lost it before, so I wonder, Ryan, if this is a call because maybe Garrett didn't think he had the pace to try and compete if he went on the same strategy as those others?
I mean, here's the thing. Garrett Lowe has the win. So right now he's just trying to bag some points, maybe even snag an extra win, get that extra cushion here, right? What do you have to lose in this point, right? He's already in a really good spot in the top 20 of the top 20 standings, so there's no real concern of that. So I kind of like this strategy out of Garrett Lowe. What else do you have to lose?
Blake, we got the points up on our screen. Things getting very interesting this late in the regular season.
Well, again, I know we've talked a lot about Malik Ray tonight and kind of his battle over the bubble and getting into the top 20. That wreck significantly hurts Wyatt Tinsley, who you can remember he won the season opening race at Daytona, but right now he is outside of the top 20 in points as a result of that incident. So you can see he's getting back. They tried to repair that car as much as possible. But right now he's in the 37th position, so he's hoping this race gets wild and chaotic so that he can make up a few moves, because again, only 1 race left after this to try and get into the postseason, and so much can happen up front. Again, so many of these drivers are in a must-win position, and if they do, they're in the top 20 in points. Colin Keister would be in that position. Garrett Maines would be close. Michael Guest. There's so many drivers up here at the front of the field that if they win, it's going to completely change things up with 1 race remaining.
And we're only going to have 15 laps to try and sort this one out. Now, granted, we could wind up going into overtime if we get that green-white checkers. We'll address that if we get there. One driver that is appreciative of this yellow is probably Zach Novak. With him being, what was it, about 11 seconds behind, he was able to get in, get repairs, and he's just reaching the back of the field now. So he can restart, kind of caught back up to everybody, but he's got a lot of people to now try and overtake. Garrett Lowe going to hope that nobody can overtake him as the iRacing pace car peels into pit lane. Keister to his outside. What's this going to look like? Is the pole sitter going to be able to blast past? Green flag is out as they head towards turn 1 once again. It's a pretty good start for Daniel Falkingham as well from 3rd place. He's got that inside away from the 66 immediately, Ryan.
You see the whole field shuffling 3 by 3 further back, but you see Garrett Lowe gets a nice start all the way out to the lead. He has a good about 1 car length gap as they're still fighting for position further back.
A lot of side-by-side back there. Drivers trying to make sure they get to the end of this one, but not give up too many positions with so few laps to go. 3 wide, a little bit farther up in the field. Zelensky on the outside of that one. In fact, he gets a shot to the back from Ryan Luza, I think, in there. Look at this mid-pack. 3 wide, about 4 or 5 deep.
And you can see fresh tires looking for a way around, but the one thing fresh tires can't overcome is the draft on the straightaways. You can see Wilson went to the top side 3 wide. He's made up a couple of positions, but doesn't have a whole lot of help right now. He's going to lose that time gain. So you have a couple of laps to get the job done. And if a caution comes out, the more heat cycles on those tires, you lose that advantage. So you're hoping this goes green pretty much all the way to the end. If you're somebody that came down in pit, they are just on the outside of the top 10 right now, though. And old tires looks like it's working as we see some smoke there, some guys sliding around.
You say that, but that was Wilson that initially got loose and caused that smoke. He had to chase that car up the hill. He is the highest of those who pitted on this last caution. He's up to 11th. And meanwhile, Falkingham has managed to overtake Lowe. He's up to the top spot.
Now Colin Keister's going to take advantage of well. Looks like Garrett Lowe may have gotten out of the groove a little bit, but now Colin Keister, and he almost clears himself off of turn number 4, stacks that group up, and now Seth the Merchant is going to come to the aid of Garrett Lowe down the front stretch and give him a big old push.
Keister's car does not look like it is happy. All kinds of wobbling around is in the back. I hope you've got your boxing gloves on. It is a brawl in there, Blake.
How tight the racing in this series always is. When you look 20th on back, they fight for every position. Wilson ducking way out of line, looking 4 wide to try and get the job done. He's able to get by a couple of cars, but again, so much work being done, racing so hard, and yet he hasn't gained a single position in the last couple of laps. He might be able to get up to 8th if he can clear Guest. He's going to be able to do it. So 13 laps to go. Wilson is starting to make some progress as Zielinski and Minter get together in turn 4.
Just ahead of them, Hurst going to take it 3 wide as well with, I think that's Femi Olot there in the middle. Tucker Minter up on the high side as they fly down towards turn 1. Last time we saw this 3 wide through here, it didn't go that great, so they're going to make it 2 wide instead. Minter backs out.
And I've been keeping my eye on Femi Olot here. He's been, for the most part, following Steven Wilson. Now there's a bit of separation here, but Femi's doing a really good job. I've been watching him kind of slice through the field. He'll get a big draft down the straightaways and then duck out at the final second and hopefully kind of pull off, I guess you could say, kind of like a slide job and hopefully get himself a spot in line. So as we're 4 wide entering turn number 3 further back, he's at Graham Bolin all the way on the top side. They're squeezing hard out of turn number 3.
And guess who's on the inside of that? It's Malik Gray in the 7. He's up to about 16th or 17th spot. That was a bold move on his part, but he's starting to lose touch now a little bit. There are drivers that are poking their nose out after getting that run, but everybody in front of them is doing the same, and that's what's causing all of these 3, 4 wide situations.
And 2 drivers in both Ray and Honeycutt. Again, Honeycutt needs points to get in right now, and he's in a position where he's going to be close depending on who wins and how things shake out. He's probably not helped by the fact that Daniel Falkingham might win this race as one car into the outside wall. Salas squeezes up into the E-Racer number 69. It makes it 3 wide. Duvall looks to the bottom. And how about Parker White? He looked to be out of the count, but still trying to make up some spots as Alfala gets a shove there. That's not going to work. Alfala into the wall. Jimmy Mullis gets turned. Derek Bordeaux, and the caution flag will be out with 11 laps to go, and that's about the last thing you wanted to see if you were one of those drivers who came down and took 4 tires.
Steven Wilson made it all the way to 5th in that melee, but it was almost inevitable, I have to say. That was some insanity through the field. I'm kind of impressed that we went as many laps as we did before that caution finally came out, and Falkingham leads. The good news for Falkingham, Ryan, is he needs this victory to get into the postseason. If he wins this one, I believe he is high enough in the points that he's basically got an automatic entry.
Yeah, and for Falkingham here, the biggest thing here right now is that you're bleeding laps now. Give me all those laps. Take them away. The less amount of time that Steven Wilson, Femi Olot have to catch me, the better. Because right now, he is in the prime position to capitalize. He has arguably the best car of that top 4, other than Steven Wilson, who's in 5th on those fresh tires. So if Falkingham's able to get a good enough jump, if we get a restart with, say, about 6, 7, 8 to go, I think he'll be in a pretty good spot to at least be able to hold on until we get to about 1 or 2 to go.
Now, this does slow things up. It takes away some of the advantage they had, Blake, as you mentioned, on those tires. But I'm looking at the field here, and it's not just Wilson in there. Hurst, Olot, and Kerwin, all on the same strategy, are within the top 10 right now. So that's a lot fewer cars. And if they've still got at least some of that advantage, I wonder if we're going to see at the lead, kind of what we saw in the mid-pack. It might get a little bit crazy at the front.
Oh, it's going to have to. Again, you have so many drivers that held on and are starting to make up some ground in terms of getting towards the front if they did take those tires. But how about the names that could use a win up here? Falkingham, Colin Keister, Colin Bowden wouldn't be completely out of making the top 20 if he were to go to victory lane. Wilson's up here. He could shake things up. Michael Cozy Jr. He's up into the top 6, and he'll have the outside line as we see that kind of the situation forming 3 wide. Busa goes with Salas in the middle, shoves him by, and then I think Alfala tries to get back down. They're still 3 wide, and then Duval just makes a bit of a move trying to clear up in front of the 29. And again, another 3 wide move off the corner at Indy, and it doesn't work.
And more than that, it's a 3 wide move that unfolds in the short chute. One of the more unique aspects of this track. Cars are already kind of on the limit. It's a straightaway, and maybe they think they can get away with it. Oh, man. Was that Duval making the dive through, or was that... wow, that was an impressive bit of avoidance. Maybe a little bit of luck, but definitely some great stuff.
You see right here, Duval, he kind of isn't all the way to the bottom here, and I think that catches them off guard. Jimmy Mullis in the middle there. I don't think he was ready for that, and Duval just washes up in the center, squeezing Ray Alfala to the wall, and just chaos.
That was Delaney in the 3 that I was looking at there that we rode on board with, that somehow managed to avoid flying parts and cars everywhere around him amidst a very narrow part of the circuit. And that actually will reward him with only 30th place, surprisingly. I thought he would have gained quite a bit more than that. He was on board with Strauss in the back of it, also managing to go underneath and just barely avoid that bit of accident. He's another driver that needs to keep himself well within that top 20 by the end of the season, so he gets automatic entry into the 2025 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. So we reset. We're still waiting for them to double up, which looks like they should be doing here. Don't forget, this is not the end of the main season. July 30th will be our regular season finale at 8 p.m. Eastern at a doozy of a track to end it at, Pocono Raceway, for that one. And again, when everything is on the line, Ryan, everybody is going to be doing all that they can to try and avoid the sinking ship, I guess, if you will.
Well, I mean, that and also Pocono, just like Indianapolis here today, is another track where a lot of guys see it as an opportunity to win themselves into the playoffs when they may not be in a position to point their way in. You know, Pocono has lent itself to some incredible racing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and we've seen photo finishes, fuel mileage, you name it. You know, Pocono coming up here in a few weeks is going to be a doozy.
Love it. And if you want to join in and try your hands at Pocono, 40% off new accounts here on iRacing.com. Log on there today to see if you can start your iRacing career. And the answer is yes, you can start your iRacing career. And I can tell you, it's addicting. I started mine thinking, oh, I'll just give it a try about 13 years ago now. And it hasn't, my subscription has not lapsed since then. So that tells you just how much this can hook you. It is so much fun to run out here. Even if you're not into oval racing, there is so many different varieties of styles of racing you can hop into. So it's got something for everybody that loves circuit racing. As we're going to restart once again, this time with Daniel Falkingham leading the way instead of Garrett Lowe, who will begin to his outside. 7 laps to go on the restart. Will we get to the finish green, or are we going to get another one coming out? Will that take us to a green-white checkers? Barney holds aloft the flag, and the green flag is out as they restart down into 1. Looks like it's another good start for 3rd place. This time, though, it's going to be Colin Keister who gets the jump, and he's got Wilson pushing him along, Ryan.
Daniel Falkingham gets a massive jump out front. They're 2x2 behind him. He is a clean air and clean sailing up into turn number 2.
Almost some more 3 wide there. I think that was Michael Cozy Jr. in the 38 that got sandwiched in there. Here comes the 17, is down back there. It's even tighter, and we got cars into the wall.
Taylor Hurst is through the grass. That's Tucker Minter who gets the worst end of that. He had a vicious impact in the inside wall. He's just going to go ahead and take the tow. His race looks like it is over. And once again, we will slow things down here.
Yeah, it's absolutely over for Minter. The car was just billowing smoke after he hit the wall, so I doubt he'll be able to replace that engine in time and get back out to racing from here. Going to be our latest retirement besides LaPrade, and Bordeaux has been stuck in pit lane from the last caution flag, so likely another DNF here late in the race. All right, let's try and break this one down, Ryan. We didn't get very far into the green flag racing before it all unfolded once again.
Yeah, and of course you see a big stack up into the outside lane, a lot of cars pressuring each other, and then just a car gets loose on the outside lane there. I believe that was Jim Mullis maybe, came down and just got right into him there and just shoved him into the inside wall. You saw the black smoke billowing out there. Nothing you could do on board with Graham Bullen here.
So 62 just gets massively loose with all the bumping and banging happening. And thankfully for everybody else, he exited stage left pretty darn quickly, that he was no longer a concern, but that didn't quite work out for Minter.
Man, he hit the wall so hard it brought out the caution. I mean, otherwise he was going to be stuck in the grass, but just how that kind of just fishtailed out of shape. I mean, you can see he hits it so hard, it bounces him back onto the racing surface. They have Taylor Hurst, who had one heck of a restart. I don't know if he got those spots back. Yes, he did. So he kind of got, but we talk about timing lines and everything with that. He gets out of shape, but the caution is timed perfectly where he's actually going to get back in position. But again, he had a really interesting restart jumping the outside of Cozy right there immediately off the jump.
Man, Hurst watched Ryan Hunter-Reay this year and said, I can do that, apparently. Riding through the grass and living to tell the tale at pretty high speeds down the back straightaway. We should get a restart without the green-white checkers. But if we do get another yellow, we will get our first green-white checkers on this one. Question is, how many laps is it going to be? It definitely seems, Ryan, that it's going to be minuscule. I'm guessing about 2 or 3 here to the finish.
Absolutely. I would be surprised if we don't sniff an overtime here. I mean, it's just been such a chaotic race further back in the pack. These guys have been absolutely racing each other so incredibly hard, going 3 and 4 wide, slamming each other into the walls. So just absolute chaos through the field, and yeah, it's going to be an incredible interview.
All right, we're going to catch up here with Daniel Falkingham. Daniel, you're on the verge of perhaps winning your first career eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race. You're staring at 5 laps to go. How are you feeling about these last couple of laps dwindling down?
Definitely a nervous wreck, not gonna lie. I can't believe we're in this spot right now. Tried to stay out there when the caution came out of that short run we had, and thankfully everything just fallen my way. Had a good restart, get around Colin, then we got around Garrett, now we're in this spot. But nerves are definitely there to try to get through these restarts. These restart games can be definitely tricky, but yeah, we're in a good spot right now. I know there's fresh tires behind us, but hopefully the cautions and just the track position's in our favor. But we're gonna do all we can to win this. I didn't expect to be in this spot, but I'm gonna try not to lose it, that's for sure.
I know you have a lot of experience kind of running in leagues where draft is a big factor. How aggressive do you get towards the end here trying to hold off any challenges?
Yeah, just try to take away everyone's air behind me because clean air is king. But also you got those new tires behind us, but hopefully they're evening out a little bit the more caution laps we have. So it's all about just controlling the draft, just trying to control the lanes behind us to keep them side by side and just try to drive away. But it's definitely gonna be hard to manage. It's just like Talladega all over again when we were up front leading that thing late. So yeah, we're gonna give it our best shot here, and whatever happens, happens.
All right, Daniel, go get it done.
Thanks, Blake.
That was Daniel Falkingham, driver of the number 54, who will lead us back to green with 3 laps to go. We have 2 laps where we could see a caution potentially. If that happens, we will go into overtime. So they have to keep it clean until that white flag. And if that happens, then drivers will find themselves managing to go to the finish. That white flag will make it official, and we won't see the caution flag fly. But let's cross our fingers, eyes, and toes here, guys, that they can manage to keep it clean.
What a story for Daniel Falkingham here, right? We're looking for his first eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series win, and he's gonna, if he gets this win, this will effectively put him in the playoffs. That is gonna be a massive, massive victory for that Joe Gibbs Racing team, and no better place to do it than here at the Brickyard.
Place that has made legends, and it could make quite the legend for the 54 driver. That is for sure. As they come down to turn 3 now. They're going to be released once again, Blake. You've given your pick coming into here. How are you feeling towards the end? Do you feel like you might be able to actually get one here?
Who knows? I think if you're Michael Cozy Jr., you're the third car on the outside line, which I would prefer to be in the outside line right now. I think you want to stay there until the very end. You want to stay in line with the draft, give yourself a chance, let everybody else go down low, try to make those moves and fail, and see what happens.
Sounds like Wyatt is back in on the points there, so that's good news for him. But so much can change here. We've already seen it's on the bubble, though, as you can see, as they flick back and forth with this 2-wide restart. Pace car is in. Falkingham has control, looking for that first victory. Green flag is out. He actually gets a bump just at the right time from Colin Bowden. Look at what that did for him. It shoots him up ahead, Blake.
Bowden trying to go down and block Steven Wilson. He successfully does it. But now Wilson, is he going to be able to get by Cozy? Looks like he's going to be able to slide up in front. They stay 3 wide of the pack. That's Michael Guest, Garrett Mays that are side by side in the middle of the field. But 3 laps to go. It's tied off the queue. Bowden's out of shape, but he keeps it going, and he's just going to avoid the grass.
Whew, close moment for the 17. 3 laps to go, 2.5 really, as we hit the turn 3 entry. Falkingham ahead of Garrett Lowe. He got that big run, but now the 89 tries to chase him down. They'll get the popsicle sticks as they come to the line, Ryan.
They're 3 and 4 wide further back in the pack, but it doesn't matter if you're Daniel Falkingham. You just want to see that checkered flag. He's getting a big run down the front straightaway. He has a good 3, maybe 4 car length gap, but oh man, you just know that Garrett Lowe is just itching to get by that green number 54.
This is what you love to see if you're in Falkingham's position. Lowe doesn't have any help behind him. You've got clean air. They're not formed up like they are for third. So if you're Daniel Falkingham, this is a great position to be in.
The only thing that could spoil it for them now is it, like I said, it's frantic at the back. And I mean, just look at that back there. We could see that yellow come out. We're hoping it doesn't. They just have to make it around 2 more corners as the top 5 start to break away. Wilson starts to make his move. He is charging now. He gets up into 3rd place. He's just got Lowe and Falkingham to go.
They're going to make it to the white flag here. Daniel Falkingham has a big lead over Garrett Lowe, but now Steven Wilson's going to challenge for the 2nd position.
The race is official. Wilson coming up to the back of Lowe. He's got to make 2 passes in 1 lap if he wants to deny Falkingham that first win. The current reigning champion already moving down to the inside. Garrett Lowe does not fight him hard. He allows him through. What can Daniel Falkingham do to hold on to this win? Are the tires enough for Steven Wilson? He doesn't have help from behind either. It has got to be all on that rubber to be able to drag himself up to the win. Down into turn 3. He gains yet more on the entry to the corner. The 54 trying to get down to the apron. Does he cover the inside in time? He does late. It balks the number 10 as they come to the turn 4 exit. Will this be enough, or is this going to be a run to the line? Steven Wilson follows him out, but no, he doesn't have the momentum as Falkingham is going to get his first win in eNASCAR.
What an unbelievable run by Steven Wilson.
It has meant everything. Look at the thrill and excitement. He has his chest pumping as he gets congratulations from Wilson going through the corners, bumping him and letting him know his approval of what a fantastic defense that was, Ryan. He knew he had to cover that, and at the last moment, he just got it in the way.
That was brilliantly executed by Daniel Falkingham. He pulled down just at the right time, just before that corner entry, kind of denied Steven Wilson the opportunity to get him in the center of the corner. Almost kind of, I wouldn't say a brake check, but kind of stalled his momentum out. And you see it here. Daniel Falkingham emerges as the victor here at the legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
What happens, happens, he said. And what happened was he gets to kiss the brick, Blake.
That is the case. And again, I think if you're Wilson, I think you got to give props to him as well. He probably had a lot of momentum in the center of the corner that he could have carried, but he wanted to race it out clean. Again, this win means so much to Falkingham, who's now in the postseason. Wilson would have just knocked some more playoff points, but what a race and what a drive for Falkingham.
As he burns it out, this winning moment is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. He's going to mark up the yard of bricks here today as the Joe Gibbs Racing driver will get to savor this one and a trip to the playoffs now for that number 54. Man, just a fantastic story. You know, they often say that Indianapolis picks its winners, guys, and it picked a fairy tale for this one.
How could you not feel good about that? Seeing the emotion from Daniel Falkingham on that onboard camera, waving his hands through the air. He really, really wanted this one. Really happy for him to see another first-time winner here in eNASCAR.
Let's take a look at the Coca-Cola move of the race and what brought him to victory lane. I'd say it was that stout defense that we mentioned as he comes around through turns 1 and 2. That is the bright green and black car of Wilson hunting him down. We wondered whether or not his call for the tires was going to be enough to deny him the victory, and it certainly came close. If it wasn't for this move down to the inside here on the short chute, I think we'd be talking about a very different story.
Well, again, Falkingham aggressive with the block. He goes down, he shuts the door on Wilson, and that's all it took. Falkingham knew off this corner he had the win. He could just block and bring it home from here.
It was close, but it was not close enough if you're Steven Wilson. Daniel Falkingham finally in victory lane here for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, which of course will take us to the Sunoco post-race report. And can't wait to get to hear from Daniel on this one, Blake. I mean, just looks like he is over the moon.
Cannot wait to talk to him. It's always special to talk to a first-time winner. Daniel Falkingham, not only are you a Coke Series winner, but as of right now, you are in the postseason for 2024 and have a shot to fight for a championship. How does it feel?
Oh, dude, I'm so lost for words, man. I can't believe that pit strategy worked. It worked out just in time because Steven was right there on tires. And, man, I can't believe we just won a Coke Series race, man, dude. I've been on this service for 7-8 years now, and I always thought about getting to this level. And to actually win at this level, man, over the moon, lost for words. We're going to celebrate, that's for sure.
Not only is this your first series win, Daniel, but as you mentioned, it is something that you have been striving for a very long time. Just kind of talk us through that last lap. Again, you see Steven Wilson, he's able to get by Garrett Lowe off of turn 2. He's got fresh tires. How did that play out from your perspective in turns 3 and 4?
Yeah, man, I saw him coming. I tried not to look at the mirror, but I couldn't help but see that he was barreling right behind me. I kind of overdrove turn 3 a little bit, gave his left front a little bit of clean air, and then he was on my bumper. I had to put a big old turn left, put a big old block on him, just park the center off of 3 and 4, and just hope I had enough drive to get to the finish line, cross the yard of bricks, and we did it. I got to find some bricks to kiss, that's for sure.
Hopefully you don't have to look too far, but Daniel, now you get this win. How much of a relief is it now? You go to Pocono next week. Again, the points position you're in, it's not a guarantee, but you'd have to do a lot to lose your spot in the playoffs now. You've gone from a rookie now to a sophomore, and now you have a chance to fight for a championship.
That's wild to think about. Just after everything that happened last season, we finished freaking 37th in points. And now to think we're not going to be worse than 10th if we make it to this postseason. We still got one more race. I ain't going to be overconfident or say we're in it yet because we have one more race to get through. You never know how the points can change. But it definitely gives me confidence to have that first win out of the way. Really wasn't even thinking about it, but just have the first win out of the way. It feels good. And now we're going to go have some fun at Pocono and see if we can go get ourselves 100K.
All right. Daniel Falkingham is an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series winner. We saw how much it meant to him earlier, and we will let him go celebrate. For somebody who was looking to notch yet another win, what would have been his 4th of the year if he were able to find a way to get around Daniel Falkingham there on the last lap. Steven Wilson, yet again, a fixture at the end of this one. But I guess I'll kind of ask you the same thing I talked to Daniel earlier about. You get by Garrett Lowe off of turn 2. Did you think right there, I have a shot?
Yeah, I definitely thought I had a shot. Fresher tires, we were moving. I think, honestly, we were the fastest car in the race for a race we were expecting to have a very tough time passing. If you got out of line, you were way off on the straightaways. But we were making it work on that first green run. We passed a bunch of those cars that qualified up front. We were working our way up to the front, and then worked with Femi there in the second run to get up to 1-2 before that last caution, kind of before all the hectic shit at the end. So, my bad. But yeah, but anyway, it was fun. I thought there when I got to Falk, I kind of could left rear air him, which kind of gets him really tight. But at that point, he just threw a pixel perfect block in turn 4, really. And once he was all the way in front of me, there's nothing I could do. I was just pushing him away. So congrats to him. He was set up teammates with him. So he was saying these past couple days, he said, I'm going to win this race. And he went out there and did it.
Well, I was going to say, so you guys are set up teammates. It's something that you two work on together. Did that kind of play into how you raced him a little bit at the end there, trying to be a little more courteous? Because I know, again, another win would be nice for you in the playoff points, but a win for that 54 team carried a little more weight.
Yeah, I mean, we saw before. I mean, I'll race guys how I have to for a win if I feel like it's necessary, to move them to pass. I thought in that situation, he just threw a perfect block and he was guarding the inside. So really the only way I could have got to his actual left rear, which would have moved him up, was to put my tires in the grass, which I had a couple moments passing cars on old tires where I'd put it on the curb and I would just about crash. So that wasn't worth the risk for me. Once he got all the way clear, he did a good job holding the bottom. And I just think that if you push a guy straight on, it's not really going to do anything for you because you're just going to plow up the track with him. So he did good. Pixel perfect block. Like I said, it was just barely enough to where he was clear and it didn't wreck him. And congrats to him.
All right, Steven Wilson still looking like your championship favorite. Continues his march towards the regular season title. He'll pick up P2 tonight. And, Steven, I'm sure we'll be talking to you a number of times before this one is all said and done on the Sunoco post-race report. As now we move to Garrett Lowe, another familiar name that we've had the pleasure of talking to many a times after these recent races. And, Garrett, it's a strategy call that puts you in position here to bring a home third tonight. If you could unmute there.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I didn't really think we had the capability to pull that strategy off there early in the race, and I think it worked out good for us. Obviously got the lead. Just 54 is a little bit better than us. On the restarts, we were just a little too tight to fire off. So once he got by me, you get one shot to get by a guy with this car. So once he got by, really not much I could do to get back by him.
I know it's been an exciting year for you. You've been able to represent BS Plus competition. I know they've done a lot of things. They even have their own German broadcast going on during a lot of these races. So being able to represent them well and be able to run strong, how is that? How much has that meant to you to be able to represent them well on this level in their first venture in this series?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. Obviously, we have a huge support with the number 89 Molly Mustang this year, so it's really great to see. Like you mentioned, we had the whole German broadcast dedicated to them, so that's awesome as well. And you get a little bit more, I guess, personalized broadcast where you're just focusing on me and Jordy. So check that out if you guys hadn't yet. But yeah, it's been awesome. Obviously, we're doing really well in the team standings, and hopefully we picked up a few more spots tonight.
And again, with those two teammates, Jordy Lopez, 9th overall in the regular season points, but still needs that win potentially to get in. But Garrett, look forward to talking to you. Your win locks you in. You're pretty much locked into this point, and it'll be fun to watch you chase a championship here.
Sounds good, guys. We'll be ready to go to Michigan when we get to playoffs.
All right, Garrett Lowe, we appreciate all three of our drivers, Daniel Falkingham, Steven Wilson, and Garrett Lowe, catching up with us on the Sunoco post-race report.
Which takes us to our results for this race. Unofficially, Daniel Falkingham, your victor over Stephen Wilson tonight. And, well, of course, we also talked to Lowe, who couldn't put up enough of a fight to keep Stephen behind him. Casey Kerwin sneaking up there into fourth with a great run. Our pole sitter, Colin Keister, still gets himself a top 5 over Michael Cozy Jr. in 6th. Taylor Hurst with one of the wildest races I think anybody had up and down the field, ending up in 7th. Seth the Merchant was behind him in 8th, Michael Guest in 9th, and Femi Olot still getting himself a top 10 after all of that. Caden Honeycutt was 11th, Graham Bolin in P12. He's got Ryan Luza behind him in 13th, Colin Bowden in the 14th position. Then it's Duval in P15, Strauss winding up 16th behind him, Garrett Maines in 17th, and poor Malik Ray. His woes seem unending this season, down in 18th. That's not going to help him out much. Nick Ottinger was 19th, and Matt Busa was our 20th driver. Then you've got White, Solis, Solinsky, and Holmes, as well as Bayous for the first half of our 20th to 30th. Then Novak, Delaney, Scott, Doucette, and Alfala, along with Leahy, Zwack, Tinsley, Alt. And then you get to your drivers that had a really bad day: Lopez, Mullis, Gary, Mentor, Bordeaux, and LaPrade. All right, here is where things sit right now. But remember, we've got one more to try and decide who is going to be a part of this bracket for the playoffs. This is if it finishes as is. Parker White and Nick Ottinger, the only 2 drivers that will make it in without a victory on points. Blake, this is going to be, I think, Parker White and Nick Ottinger throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at it.
Well, and it may not matter because, Wyatt Tinsley, he is 20th right now, so his win counts, but he is the 20th driver, so he loses 1 spot. He's out. Malik Ray is 22nd. He's out right now, but he can make up a couple of points. And by the way, that 20th position with the number 20 Wyatt Tinsley, Ryan, it's a tie right now. Not to mention, we can get another new winner at Pocono next week. My goodness, do we have a lot that could shake out here.
Well, and speaking of new winners, I mean, it's just shocking to me to see guys who are so competitive, like Parker White and Nick Ottinger, not have a W in the win column yet. It's actually really shocking. But you also mentioned, you have Wyatt Tinsley, who was tied for 20th. One position on track, 1 position in the points. That could change the entire layout of this playoff bracket.
Well, that next race is going to decide it at Pocono. It's the Tricky Triangle on July 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern here on iRacing Live. So make sure and tune in to watch that, because it is going to be a thrill seeing who can put it all on the line to make sure they have a chance at the 100,000 at the end of the season. Well, let's go to you guys for our final thoughts on how this went. Blake, I'm so excited that they asked me to do Indy, because it's something special to me, and it seems like it's going to be special now to Falkingham.
For sure, and it was great to have you in the broadcast booth this week. The one thing I'm looking forward to when we go to Pocono is the exact same thing that we saw tonight. Strategy ended up being the difference. Daniel Falkingham, he said it in his interview, he thought he had no shot to win with where he was running earlier in this race. He gets a timely caution, and we know Pocono is a race, Ryan, that is almost set up exactly like Indianapolis, where you can pit, play strategy, try to get track position. I imagine we'll see so many desperate drivers doing the exact same thing in 2 weeks, with the fact that we only have 1 race left before the playoffs start.
I'm about to say, it's urgency time. There's a lot of guys who need that win to lock themselves in, and with how crazy this race was here tonight, you can only imagine Pocono is going to be even more crazy. So I'll be sure to be there. I'll be watching. I'll be tuning in. It's going to be a chaotic race at Pocono.
All right, it's going to be hard to top what we saw at Indianapolis. We'll see if the Tricky Triangle can do it. Thanks for tuning in here on iRacing. I'm Joe Peak. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.